The following story is based on facts, or rather, it is for all intents and purposes absolutely more or less factual. Okay, we may have embellished a few things, just a teensy-weensy tiny bit. Once upon a time, there were two farmers named Ben and Bess Shader. The Shaders lived and worked on an 80-acre dairy farm and citrus grove in the sunny land of Orlando, Florida. They had 4 delightful children, Charlie, Stanley, Edith, and their youngest child, little Ronnie. Farm boy Ron enjoyed a childhood surrounded by cows, chickens, domesticated squirrels, and dogs and horses, and sometimes even rode his favorite horse to school. But Ron knew that farming wasn't his calling. He loved the art of the deal, so he worked hard, learned all he could, and turned himself into an entrepreneur. He was no longer Farm Boy Ron, but Sir Ron, Knight of Business.
Meanwhile, in southwest Orlando, the Royal Rubelow family took up residence. King Maurice, Queen Tess, and their 3 beautiful daughters, Mardina, Arlene, and Karen, relocated from the frozen kingdom of New York. Eldest daughter, Jewish-American Princess Mardi, was gorgeous and smart and witty and charming and all the things that a princess should be.
Now, given that he was a very handsome Jewish bachelor, Sir Ron was always the first to be notified via Jewish grapevine when lovely Jewish maidens moved to town. And so it followed that Sir Ron phoned Princess Mardi and asked if she was perchance available on Friday night.
Not wanting to appear too eager or available, she responded that she did in fact have plans, but that she could probably change them. Ron then replied something to the effect of,
"Good, because I want to fix you up with my friend."
Not cool. Mardi was miffed, but she was trapped. Much later, it was revealed that Ron wanted to get to know the princess without committing to a date of their own, so he had his squire date her instead. Sir Ron was very sneaky. Still disgruntled, Mardi went on the date with Squire Stan Greenberg, accompanied by Ron and his date. Princess Mardi and Squire Stan did not hit it off at all, but she was very enchanted with Sir Ron, if still annoyed with him for tricking her.
Sir Ron liked her as well. She was, after all, gorgeous and smart and witty and charming and all the things that a princess should be. Sir Ron especially loved her long dark hair. Remember that, because it comes into play later. Now our tale grows thorny, because Mardi and Ron will both swear that they never really courted at all. You see, the Orlando Jewish community was quite small back then. The Orlando Jewish singles community was even smaller. Everyone knew everyone. So Ron and Princess Mardi attended the same functions, cavorted with the same people, and socialized regularly, but they never quite courted. Everyone knew they had a thing for each other, though. It was obvious. Kind of. How? Well, he always made sure to sit near her when they were at parties and dinners.
But then again, he barely acknowledged or even spoke to her. But it was evident that they were smitten, in a confused, convoluted, complicated sort of way.
Then the unthinkable happened. A business opportunity arose, and with nary a by your leave, Sir Ron picked up and relocated to California.
The princess was devastated. She tried to stay busy. She worked, she dated. Then, in a fit of madness, she hacked off that long, dark hair that Sir Ron so loved. Okay, not madness, but it just makes the story so dramatic.
Then Princess Mardi became involved with a commoner named Steve, and before long they sort of got engaged, but she was settling, and her mother, the Queen, knew it. If Mardi had given up on Ron, Queen Tess had not. She adored Ronnie, and she did not adore Steve, the faux fiancé, and she let her eldest daughter know it. She then asked what Mardi planned to do if Sir Ron returned and wanted her back. Princess Mardi hysterically responded,
"He's never coming back!"
The Queen suspected otherwise.
Hear ye, Sir Ron arrives! All hail Sir Ron! He hath returned to our fair city! Princess Mardi could not believe it. How had her mother known? Now, Queen Tess had always claimed to be a witch, but mayhap it was just wishful thinking, or kismet. or a really lucky break.
Shortly thereafter, Ron contacted Mardi to let her know he was back in town and was disappointed to hear she was unavailable. But true to form, he indeed did not pledge himself to her either. He didn't do much of anything, come to think of it. No matter, because Mardi immediately broke off her engagement to Steve.
But wait, she and Ron weren't exactly together now, were they? They weren't exactly anything. What was going on in that head of his? What game was he playing? Princess Mardi decided to end the charade with a game of her own.
Mardi knew this scheme would make or break them, but she needed to make her point and take a stand. Enough of this hesitancy. Before a great ball in the kingdom of Tampa, Mardi assembled the noblemen of the court and thus ordered,
"Tonight at the ball, do not allow Sir Ron near me. If you see him coming towards me, you flirt with me, take me to get a drink, keep me dancing. I don't care how you do it, but keep him away from me."
The gentlemen happily obliged, and Princess Mardi danced non-stop at the ball. She also became quite tipsy. Sir Ron watched this nonsense all night, becoming increasingly annoyed with her behavior. Why was she ignoring him, yet flirting with everyone else? That never happened to Sir Ron. Maidens loved him. Eventually, Sir Ron hit his breaking point. Armed with naught but his daring and a lot of muscle, he barreled through the protective barrier of gentlemen to approach the princess.
As best as we can reconstruct, this was their conversation.
"I think you need some fresh air."
Hey! What is wrong with me?
"Nothing is wrong with you. Why are you acting like this?"
Don't you know that you're going to marry me?
They were together from that moment on. To his credit, Ron will swear that he always knew that Mardi was the one for him. He claims that he just was waiting for her to grow up before getting serious. After all, when they met, Mardi was still a teenager, and there is a 9-year difference in their ages.
Marty says that he's full of it and that she chased him for 4 long years before she was finally able to catch him.
Ron wanted to give Mardi an engagement ring and a honeymoon, but alas, he only had enough money saved for one, not both. He asked his betrothed which she'd prefer, promising to make it up to her someday.
She decided that since you only have one honeymoon, she would do without the jewels. For the present.
A royal honeymoon was decreed. That decision would come back to haunt them, but we'll get to that in a moment. In 1963, the Robert Meyer Motor Inn opened in downtown Orlando. It was considered very upscale, and the building just happened to have a giant R and M on it. Seriously? That was their initials. Although the Robert Meyer couldn't accommodate them on a Saturday night, and they had no openings in June, they did happen to have a Sunday available in February, and the Sunday was February 14th, Valentine's Day. Are you jesting me? Well, that settled it right then and there. They would get married on Valentine's Day.
Now, Princess Mardi readily admits that she has never been able to style her own hair, but she wasn't concerned for her wedding day since she planned to go to a salon. One detail the princess forgot, though, in 1964, no hair salons were open in Orlando on Sunday. No hairstylists would even work on Sunday. Most of them were either in church or recuperating from Saturday night merrymaking. Hairstylists are notorious merrymakers. Poor Mardi was left to do her own hair and makeup. She failed miserably. So here she was on her wedding day in a borrowed dress, no less, crying off her inexpertly applied makeup as she tried to fix her difficult, unsympathetic hair, and she's in a full-blown meltdown. Thankfully, Mardi's fairy godmother came to the rescue. She dried Mardi's tears and fixed her hair. The wedding was still on!
The ceremony, however, wasn't much better. The rabbi kept getting Mardina's name wrong, calling her Marlena or Marina or Margie, Marnie, something with an M. But Sir Ron and Princess Mardi did get married. But as soon as the ceremony was over, the newlyweds had to leave their own wedding reception to catch a plane for their long-awaited honeymoon. The timing could have been better, and they paid a hefty price. They have almost no still photos of themselves at their own wedding. And to add insult to injury, the movies that were shot that day were never seen again. Something about the film being exposed or lost or accidentally destroyed or something equally as inept. The film company did offer them a free roll of film, though. Wouldn't that make you feel better?
Now, remember how we told you earlier that the decision to forgo an engagement ring for a honeymoon would prove problematic? We now come to that unfortunate tale. Ron and Mardi went to Puerto Rico and St. Thomas Virgin Islands for their honeymoon. What could be more romantic and exciting than that? Puerto Rico was lovely, but Mardi became quite ill from some bad pineapple. The next hotel on their itinerary turned out to be a former convent. The concrete room had twin beds and a sticky door that jammed shut, trapping the couple inside. Sir Ron had to practically break the door down to escape the confinement. The final phase of the trip was most dreadful. When they attempted to check into their hotel in St. Thomas, they were told that the hotel had overbooked and there were no rooms available, and the horrendous hotel manager callously suggested they fly back to Miami. Upon hearing their tale, a sympathetic clerk at the airport took pity on them and sent them to stay with a local couple who rented out rooms in their home. But trouble was brewing. Mardi and Ron came down to breakfast the next morning only to find the poor wife hysterical. Come to find out that the unfortunate woman's husband had just informed her he was leaving her and filing for divorce. That was fun.
The exhausted and exasperated newlyweds couldn't wait to get home. Now, 50 years ago, most brides wanted to be carried over the threshold by their new husbands, and Princess Mardi the Romantic was no exception. Not to mention that she was quite petite and Sir Ron was over 6 feet tall, athletic, and he moved heavy furniture every day at work. But for whatever reason, Ron didn't think picking up his young wife was such a good idea.
But it's bad luck not to, and we've already had our share of bad luck, and don't you want our luck to change?
Ron wanted to make his new wife happy, especially after the honeymoon from hell, so he acquiesced. He scooped Mardi into his big, strong, muscular arms and proceeded to immediately and completely throw out his back. He spent the next 3 days in the hospital in traction.
And then over the next 5 decades, lots of other stuff happened and yada yada yada, but that is an entirely different tale, and quite frankly, we just don't have that kind of time.
So now we come to the moral of our story.
Even if you're gorgeous and smart and witty and charming and all the things that a princess should be, life isn't always sunshine and lollipops.
But when things start out as complicated and messed up as this relationship and marriage did, you know that whatever life throws at you, you'll get through it if you stick together.
Just like our fairy tale couple has done.
They've got a 50-year marriage to prove it.
And in case you're wondering, Ron made up for not being able to afford an engagement ring.
Mardi got her jewels, and then some.
And they lived happily ever after.
Mostly. The end.